Search operations are currently underway in the Mediterranean Sea to try and locate possible debris from the Egyptair flight from Paris to Cairo that went missing early this morning. In fact, we've got breaking news coming into us just now. The Greek authorities say they have found debris from the crashed plane. They say they've found floating material that is likely to be debris from the Egyptair flight. Egyptair, for its part, is saying that it's very probable now that the wreckage from the plane has been found. We do not know as of yet what caused the plane to go down with 66 people on board. A technical failure or a possible terror attack. Nothing is being ruled out at this stage. Families of the passengers are gathering at both the Paris airports and Cairo airports. And we're going to be bringing you updates on this throughout the show this evening. Joining us on set is William Jordan, former U.S. State Department official. You've been a diplomat in various countries throughout the regions, Middle East, North Africa. There's a lot of context that we're going to have to give our viewers, so we'll get to that in just a moment. Also with us from Spain, from Malaga in Spain via Skype, is Alex Macheras, aviation analyst. You cover these stories, so you're going to be giving us your insights in just a moment. We also have Jean-Baptiste Jabari, a pilot, legal aviation expert. He's going to be joining us a little later on throughout the show. First, Alex Macheras, let me turn to you. At this stage, just your gut feeling, and it's not that we want to go too far into speculation, but once you get used to analyzing these events, you do start seeing patterns emerging. So from what you're hearing now, your gut feeling on where this is heading between a possible technical failure or terror attack.
Good afternoon. Yes, and that's right. You do, after sort of analysing case after case like this, and with the news stories that we hear, which seems to be quite regularly now, despite aviation having its safest year yet last year. It's important to note that this aircraft, the A320, was a very modern airliner. An Airbus A320 takes off or lands every 2 seconds somewhere in the world. So that's just to give you some context as to how widely this aircraft is used. It's Air France, your national carrier, have a huge fleet of them, and they're manufactured down in Toulouse in the south of France. Now, the reason it's not surprising that the authorities are saying, actually, we don't think it's technical, is because of this. It is such a sophisticated aircraft, they simply do not fall out of the sky. And so, as a result, I completely understand the Egyptian transport minister, who says now he thinks, actually, this is more leaning towards terrorism. And as we know, in the last few minutes, we've just had confirmation that they have located the wreckage site just near a Greek island.
All right, Alex Macheras, stay tuned. We're going to just roll out the timeline of the events for our viewers right now. The flight took off from Paris last night shortly after 11 p.m. local time. And there was nothing, out of the ordinary when the flight took off. Nothing suggesting that this flight was fated to go down. It departs from Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, the main French international airport, at 11:09. At 1:55, that's to say almost 3 hours later, Greek air traffic control tries to get in touch with the plane while it's over Greece, reaches the pilot, gets through to the pilot, who didn't indicate any problem. In fact, the exchange, we're told, was fairly lighthearted, with the pilot using Greek words to communicate with air traffic control. At 2:26, the plane left Greek airspace. At that point, air traffic control could not get in touch with the pilot, tried again minutes later as it entered Egyptian airspace 3 minutes later, 2:29, and they're understood that contact had been lost. We're also now able to tell you that at 2:37, so less than 10 minutes later, the plane swerved abruptly, a 360-degree turn indicating that it was potentially spinning out of control, almost certainly. And one area of uncertainty is that 2 hours later, a distress signal may or may not have been intercepted. We're getting one version from Egyptair, the airline, and another version that has been denied by the Egyptian army. So that still needs to be cleared up. Christine Negroni joins us now. She's an aviation investigator, author of The Crash Detectives. Christine, also I want to ask you first the same question. When you look at this, you've been seeing the patterns from these events over time. What's your initial thought?
Well, my initial thought is I have no initial thought. And I think it's probably the best you can do is to say, wait, this is a mystery that's going to last a matter of minutes. It's not going to take a long time to figure out what happened to this airplane. So there's no point in, from my opinion, in prejudging now what it's likely to be.
All right. Let me go back to Alex Macheras. And first, let's address the track record of this airline, Egyptair. It's an airline that's been around for a long time and has a fairly good record.
It does have a fairly good record. Yeah, that's correct. In the past, the note undoubtedly many would have found on Google today in light of the crash, Egyptair did see that fair share of incidents quite a few years ago. These did include a few hijackings, some crashes, and also a very famous pilot suicide case. From a pilot based in Cairo for Egyptair. However, in more recent years, Egyptair operate a very modern fleet, as I was saying earlier, and they've kind of moved away from that, and they are now a safe national carrier of Egypt to fly with. We know that they were in the news just last month when there was a hijacking on an Egyptair flight that ended up being diverted to Larnaca as a result of the hijacker's request. But other than that, we haven't heard much. What people are confusing and drawing similarities to is that they're saying, well, an Egyptair aircraft was affected in October for the Sinai bombing. That was not the case. That was a Russian airliner, Metrojet A321. However, it did happen over the Sinai region in Egypt, and so that's the similarity there. And we know in that circumstance, it was a bomb loaded on at Sharm el-Sheikh Airport.
Christine Negroni in Providence, Rhode Island. We know that because the Egyptair has released this information, that the plane, an Airbus 320, has 48,000 hours of flight time. It's been in service since 2003. In aviation terms, that's considered, if not a recent plane, certainly by no means an old plane.
No, it's not, though you have seen a global trend towards modernizing fleets. There's all sorts of economic and financial reasons for that. But airlines are now trying to update so that their airplanes are not that old, but still 11 years, 12 years old, that's not an old airplane. And certainly the age of the aircraft is unlikely to be a factor in the accident or in what happened to the airplane.
And what about the pilot? He had, we're told, 6,000 hours of flight time, including 2,000 on that particular model, the Airbus 320. What does that tell us?
It doesn't tell us much. It's not 16 or 18,000, which some captains, as they reach toward the end of their career, can achieve without a problem. But it's not a small amount either. So we'd say that these are moderately average pilots with average experience, and we're going to assume they're probably in their 30s or 40s with that kind of flight time. Probably not military pilots with that number of hours, assuming that that is not the number of hours on type. It's my understanding that that 6,000 hours is total flight hours. If it's hours on type, that's obviously...
No, it's 6,000 total hours, 2,000 on an Airbus A320.
Yeah. So these are moderately experienced pilots, but that's not, that's not a significant, it's not a small amount of airtime for pilots.
So there's no outlier, nothing strange in those numbers is what you're telling us.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
And what about the flight that the plane itself, the A320?
Well, look, as your other guest just said, it's an airliner that's been proven. It's been around for a long time. You really can't, with any kind of good sense, say that this is about any kind of airliner that's flying in commercial service now is unsafe. All sorts of authorities have written off on them. They've been in the air for a long time. So I think it's unlikely to be something unique to the Airbus A320. But that is not to say that some combination of maintenance problems or exposure, repair work that maybe wasn't properly done, that some sort of unique problem on that particular airplane didn't contribute to the accident. And so the Airbus A320, no, but this particular airplane, perhaps. That's what we'll have to find out.
We'll go to Athens in just a second and speak to our correspondent there who has the latest news, especially on the debris. Just before we go to Natalie Savarakis, though, I want you to look at a map of the territorial waters, and it just gives you a sense of where this is all happening and who's involved. The plane was flying over Greece, and it was flying towards Egypt on the bottom of your screen, and it had just crossed into Egyptian airspace over Egyptian territorial waters when contact was lost. So what that tells you is, you're at the border of several countries being involved. Egypt first among them, because it's been determined this was in Egyptian territory. Greece, number two. Cyprus also potentially involved, at least in terms of the search efforts. And another thing that needs to be highlighted is for the investigation, France is going to be involved. Why? Because that's where the plane is built, Airbus, and Americans will be involved as well, because that's where the engine of the plane is built. But we'll get more on that in a second. Natalie Savarakis in Athens. Natalie, what's the latest that you have on potentially finding debris or even the wreckage of the plane?
Well, the latest I have is actually coming out of the Twitter account of Egyptair, which has confirmed finding the wreckage of the flight, of the Egyptair flight itself, close to Karpathos Island. Of course, that in no way confirms the fact that it was in Greek territorial waters or airspace or FIR. Call it what you may. We still don't know that, but we know from the Egyptair, again, Twitter account, that they have located the wreckage. The families, they say, have been informed, and they're continuing the search operations to find more debris of the flight, the plane.
All right, Natalie Savarakis, tell us more about the efforts that are underway right now, and I know that Greece has deployed its ships to the area, and you were telling us earlier that Egypt has actually told it not to encroach on the Egyptian territorial waters.
Well, essentially what happens, I mean, my understanding and from what I've been told, for the search and rescue operation, each country is essentially responsible for combing the area of its own jurisdiction. So at the moment, because the debris was actually located within Egypt's space, it essentially told the Greek authorities that they needn't continue their search in their own jurisdiction, as everything was found in Egypt. So the frigate, as the helicopters were kind of released, if you like, and only one C-130 aircraft was actually continuing the search operations, coordinating and collaborating all this, of course, with the Egyptians, who are essentially running the entire operation. I'm also hearing Americans are involved, as the French, and of course the Greeks. Now, we've been hearing, and that's from the Greeks that I've been talking to at the Joint Rescue Coordination Center. They've been giving me information that they've been hearing from Egypt, that yes, some debris was found, floating materials such as life vests and other plastic items, but all this was conveyed to them by the Egyptian authorities.
All right, Natalie Savarakis with the update from Athens, heavily involved in the search effort. Thank you very much. I want to bring in Pierre Duval now, who's president of the Regulation and Safety Environment at Aéroclub France. That's a French flight club. You're also a pilot, a manager of new private airlines. What is your sense when you look at the flight data? I'm talking about the speed of the plane and the altitude of the plane, both of which were absolutely normal. It was a cruising speed and cruising altitude, and then all of a sudden, everything seems to have gone wrong. The plane apparently spinning out of control. What does that tell you as a pilot?
First thing, I think we have to take into account it's too early to give any real explanation for sure. But first thing, the most important is not really that everything was normal before, because there's always one moment when everything is in bad shape. But the most important thing is the fact that some ships on the surface during the night saw a ball of fire and saw the fire coming down to the water. So there was a kind of an explosion, whatever the reason for this explosion was, but the aircraft didn't come down in one piece and didn't come down in good shape. So there's not a lot of reason for an aircraft to explode like this. You have either a bomb or a missile or something going really bad with the engine and the tanks.
Pierre, at this stage,
Unfortunately,
how seriously are you taking those reports by locals in Greece that they saw fire or they saw a flash in the sky? I mean, none of that has been officially linked to the crash yet. How seriously are you taking those reports?
This morning, I'm not in Paris, I'm in Toulouse right now, and this morning we were visiting some installation here, and one of the first information I got was that somebody has seen this ball of fire. So whether it is true or not, but it goes pretty well with the fact that this aircraft went down rapidly without a pilot saying anything, without any call, a medical. So, when you are a pilot, if something goes wrong, you deal with it, but at the same time, you try to communicate to somebody. We have three words when we have a problem on board. The first is aviate, for flying the aircraft. The second is navigate, to know where you go. And the third is communicate, to tell exactly what is happening or tell somebody that you have a problem. If things are developing so rapidly that you don't even have time to say mayday, it has to be something very sudden and very serious, and it doesn't go just like you have a technical problem developing.
But if you look now, of course, the current context of repeated terror attacks, including in France and in Egypt, the two countries that are involved in this flight, because it was departing from Paris going to Cairo. The current context, of course, is rife with terror attacks and terror threats. But if you look at a few years back, the Rio to Paris flight that went down over the Atlantic Ocean, same thing. There was no communication with air traffic control of any kind that anything had gone wrong, and yet there was no terror threat. It was not a bomb. It was technical failure.
Yeah, it was a technical failure, but we were far from everything. It was during very, very bad weather. They were communicating with HF, which is a completely different kind of radio than VHF, which is you don't have a contact as easily as you have with a VHF, and they were completely lost in what we have done, and they did not come down as fast as this one. Yeah,
So,
the thing is, the weather was good. You have pictures of the site. There was absolutely nothing for being a nuisance to the aircraft. We'll know soon, because there are some evidence that the wreckage has been found or will be found very soon. The other thing is that, and before anything is known about what happens to the flight, but operation in Charles de Gaulle regarding security have been on the move since early this morning. And I think this will be a big change. There will have to be a big change in Charles de Gaulle on security.
well, that is assuming, Pierre, that there was a security breach at Charles de Gaulle. Is that what you're saying?
No, whatever. I'm not assuming there was. I am telling that there are right now people questioning the safety inside, which is a normal way of doing so. People are just reviewing the procedures, and they are reviewing the people. And I think that there are things which are going to be done in the coming days or weeks regarding the safety there and the people working on the airport, because it has been said for too long now that we have people on the airport who shouldn't be on the runways.
And who could pose a security threat? That's what you're saying.
We have in France what we call the fiche S, which are the police description of individuals with safety concern. And we know we have workers with fiche S working on Charles de Gaulle. They have been working there for months or years, and now I think it's time to review this kind of policy.
All right, Pierre, you'll tell us more about that in the second part of our show. We're going to take a very short break. We're back in just a second. We'll continue to ask all the questions you want the answers to. Stay with us.